Hi, Gad.
Hi, David. How are you?
Good. Happy to be live again with you for this PhD Dojo in
Yeah,
the middle of summer. A lot of people are on vacation, but hey, let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep answering these questions because there's always someone out there waiting for answers to their questions. And I think the question you bring this week is really, really important and interesting.
yeah. It's a major question about when to start to look for a job. What is good for me outside of academia,
Mhm.
or even inside of academia, because we already talked about it. Like all the things that we will talk about today is for everybody. So to not stick to the bench, for example.
Mhm.
So the question is from Matt Campea. Matt is a student at McMaster University. I will
Okay.
remember Matt. He will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's at McMaster University. He's a mentee at the second lab, and the question that he brings is, okay, what are the mistakes that people in academia or people during the PhD, masters, or postdoc are doing to prevent them to go to their future career. It could be industry, it could be government, it could be non-for-profit organization.
Mhm.
But what are the things to not do um, in academia that prevent
Mhm.
you for a great career?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
uh,
found this I found this question really interesting because often people ask, "What do I do for this? How do I get to that?" And here, Matt is asking, "What what are the mistakes? What should I not do, or what do people usually do that prevents them from having fruitful, job transitions after their PhD, towards their postdoc?" But anyway, here we're talking about leaving academia. What's blocking people once they get to those first interviews in industry? And I found it was a really, really interesting question.
mhm.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And I think the first thing that come to my mind is networking. So to not to
Me too.
network. Yeah, I think this is the first thing. So keeping in our own environment, lab space, going to conference and speaking with your PhD friends, staying with your peers. That's great. That's a great stuff to make this kind of networking, because it's networking. But also go outside of that and meeting different kind of people, diverse people. It's very important too if you want to go if for your career. So meet new people is very great. Uh, I
So,
would like to. Yeah, go ahead, David.
well, I was going to say that this is exactly what came to my mind when the question popped up,
Hmm.
which is like putting it in another way. You go down the rabbit hole of your PhD, and then you just come out for air at the end, having stayed only within your research subject, within your lab or your institute, and not having somehow had conversations with people from other domains, from nearby departments, etc., etc. But just to drill down a little bit on this question. um, One of the things that I imagine as ways to have these conversations with people who have profiles different than you, it can start by keeping an eye out for seminars that are not in your domain but are still in your department, maybe, or in your university. Do you have other suggestions of how do I, as a biological sciences graduate student, uh, get to
Or
meet
even,
people in the social sciences, for example?
yeah, of course. So in inter departments, so between departments, but also I'm thinking about conferences.
Okay.
Conferences is a good place to network. This is made for that. That's the reasons why we continue to have in-person conferences. I think it's to meet people in
Mm-hmm.
real, in person. So in conferences you always have the conference in a scientific conference. So you have the conference, the talk, and that thing, but you have also the industry booth. So you have a
Mm-hmm.
place where you have all these industry people. Just go there and try to make connection first, and continue to network with them. But basically, what networking is it just not only making connection, is it just building genuinely a relationship with somebody. I think this is what networking is. So if you just connect with somebody on LinkedIn, it's not really networking. You just have to talk a little bit with this person or interact with this person by writing or by talking. So this is really what networking is. It's building genuinely, and I insist on the genuinely, like you should be authentic when you build this relationship. This is what networking, I think, is.
So I think what, you're talking about how to be genuine and how to be authentic, and one of the things that comes to mind, and I kind of mentioned this idea of starting your PhD and then never looking up until last year, and I think genuine relationships are built through time. You can't build an authentic and genuine and deep relationship in one connect, like you said, in one conversation or in one weekend. So I just wanted to add one thing to add this aspect of temporality, which is this should start early in your graduate researcher career. If you wait for the last year to have those conversations, they'll be clumsy, they'll be transactional, because you want something out of them. And one way to be or to appear authentic, or to have conversations that are natural, in a way, it's another way to put it, and that are not artificial, is to start having them when you don't want anything out of them. You just want to meet the person. Or you were mentioning talking with people from the industry booth. Just ask them, hey, how does someone with a profile like mine fit in an organization like yours? But you're not looking for a job. You just want to start a conversation. So start early. That would be the thing I would add to that aspect. Yeah,
this is how we build a conversation. When you go to a party and you meet somebody and you start talking, and that's it. It's not a party, but it's a professional relationship. My best example of that is my hairdresser. When you go to your hairdresser, she just cut your hair and you leave, and that's finished. But she starts doing the conversation with you, and when you come back 6 months later, because your hair are like mine, you come back to it. She said, like, how's your webs going? How was your vacation in Florida or anywhere?
Because she remembers.
Yeah, she remembers, and you just like, okay, how she remembered this? So there's different way to do it. You can have some tips, and I had this talk with my hairdresser, for example, this conversation with my hairdresser to build relationship, and she told me, like, well, I have a good memory. So,
well, I'd say, and I know it's a misnomer, but it's a muscle that you can work. A lot of us, in my case, I'm an introvert, and it's not easy for me to go and just engage conversation with someone I don't know. But like after 3 years almost, it's almost 3 years of Papa PhD, like almost day for day as we're recording here, but almost 3 years of this has really kind of strengthened that muscle in me, and now it's something that I can do. And I'm sure that this I think of remembering names or remembering details that someone shared with you months ago, I think practice also has to do with it. So start early, and you'll get better at it. Even if the first conversations are awkward, don't worry about it.
Yeah, in companies you have that's another type of conversation if we can go deeper. But in companies you have a tool named a CRM. A CRM is exactly for that in the beginning. So CRM helps you to remind the people you contacted, and if they like flowers, So and the next time you meet them, how was your flowers? How was your gardening? So it's something like that. So it's a sales and marketing tool, but it can be used for that. It could be an Excel file where you have all the people you met or something like that. But it's a muscle, as you said. It's a muscle to it's a skill basically, and the skills comes from
Practice,
knowing, practice, expertise, etc., etc.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so we talked about this general idea of
Mhm.
networking, and I feel that mostly, like, if there's one thing that you can do, one mistake that you can do is to not network. But I know that we were talking before, and you have other, like, more detailed examples of things that you are either doing or not doing that might
Mhm.
be hurting your transition to what comes after your graduation, or whenever you transition from academia
Mhm.
to outside. Can you dig a little deeper in that on that?
Yeah, there's other things like another thing is the skill development. So you can stay, you can do your PhD, for example. You do your PhD, you start your PhD, you go to the lab, you do your experiment, or you doing a literature review, or you do your PhD subject. You go deep into it, you do experiment, you find results, etc. And at the end, when you do all that work, everybody would be happy, and you will publish, etc., and you will have your PhD, and you leave. And basically, this is the minimum that you should do for having your PhD is making your lab work.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is if you stick too much to the bench or the lab work, um, well, you don't develop the skills that are required for your future job. Not all the skills. Of course, research will learn you some of the skills. They will because you this PhD, but basically more PhD. It's the only way to learn skills by research for research,
Mm-hmm.
which is a way to learn skills. But let's say that you figure out that you are very interested about business and finance.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty hard to learn it by doing a PhD in a lab in science or in humanities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so maybe it's a nice way to so it's PhD is a lot of opportunity to learn your skills and develop your skills. I think it's a very great opportunity to do that. So basically, this is it. Just look for the skills that you want for the job that you would like to do, or you aim or your goal, and go to find the course, go to find a way to practice it. Um, I can give you an example. Maybe you are very interested about managing a team.
Mm-hmm.
So why not taking a little bit of your time to be involved in a student organization to organize conferences, for example. That's a basic example, but if you are the president of this organization, you just manage a team. That's team management. So that's one of the example.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice example, because it's you're doing that within the scope of being a graduate student, and so it can be part of the experience. Of course, not everyone can do that, or can be the president of the student association, or whatever. But yeah, so taking part in projects, I understand. But are you also suggesting, like, getting training outside, on your own time? Let's say project management is also something uh, uh, like that people can train, or specific, learn specific programming languages that will be needed later on. So is this also part of what you're suggesting?
Yeah, it really depends of how deep you want to go. So today there's a lot of platforms where you can learn things by yourself. You can read books. You can take a course if you want to take it, and also it opens to new opportunities, new way of thinking about the skill that you want to do or not. So yeah, I think it's a suggestion depending of how deep you want to go with these things. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a PhD is an opportunity to learn, just not only about your topic, your PhD topic, but also about other things.
Mm-hmm. So I would suggest that, because, and if we're considering people within the PhD, it's true that part of the opportunity is just the fact of being a student enrolled in a university and in graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
And often there are resources and there are courses offered. So be very conscious of everything that's offered. If you want to work in this industry or that industry, go look at what the job postings look like. And try to see, okay, from what I've done in my PhD so far, and I always like people to consider the PhD as not just an educational journey, but also a professional one. So of all I've done in my PhD, what can I tick in this job posting, and what can't I tick? And then from those things that are gaps, to look into what's offered. Because we know graduate students already are very busy. Depending on what they're doing, they may have more or less time to do stuff outside their PhD. And anyway, at least exercise they should all be doing just to stay healthy and to have a healthy mind too. But see what's offered that can, while you're in university and you're offered these things. That you can take advantage of them. A course in programming, a mini course on project management, things like keywords that you see that pop up in different job postings and that you don't have yet, but that are offered by university. Don't miss those opportunities, because you can always go get those outside, but then you start having to leave campus and also pay for those. So you need to be careful on managing your energy and also your finances on that side, I guess.
Yeah, that comes exactly with the next topic that I would like to say, as just like, for example, saying yes to everything, to every opportunity is like, okay, there's also a misconception in academia that the more you do, the better you are. So the more publication you have, the better scientist you are, which is, I think, a misconception. But let's say, for example, you have a lot of opportunities. You will have a lot of opportunities during your PhD anyway, but to write articles, to do these things. But you just have to wondering, is it something that I would like to spend time and energy into it? Does it fit with the focus that I would like to bring to my PhD? And because PhD is also your research, but also you building your skills for your future career. I think the PhD is for that. So is it something that I would like to do just because for saying yes to everything? But is it something that I would like to do because I would like to focus and add values to that? And the other thing is if you say yes to everything, and you said yes because you want to help somebody, or that there's many reasons, it doesn't help very much, because you will be overwhelmed and you don't help yourself, and you will be overwhelmed. You will spend time and energy on something, but finally you will not be able to deliver, so finally you don't help. So this is something that happens to many people in PhD, like saying yes to everything. I was one of them. so this is if I have to come back in the past and doing my PhD, I will just skip some stuff. So this is one of the things that I would like to say about this topic. Another thing is innovation. So what my PhD, how I can turn my PhD to have an impact for the society.
So let's keep that. We're going to talk about that, which I think is important. But this that you just said really made me think of a reflection I've had in the past. So this thing about not saying yes to everything. The first thing that came to mind was an image, like if your PhD is a sculpture that you're doing. Let's say that you're creating this sculpture of your your career, your young researcher career, you need to be, it takes a lot of your energy, a lot of your time, a lot of your mental power. And it's true that if you say yes to everything, you end up putting things on the sculpture that don't fit well with it, that will take time to install, to tend to, and then in the end, they won't count for what you want to project as a young professional candidate for a job, because it doesn't make sense with your vision for yourself, your values, etc. I really agree with that. So be very thoughtful about that. And the second thing that came up was this reflection I've had in the past, which is we are not taught when we're in grad school to value our time. And I think
Exactly.
I would go to the extreme of saying we are taught to not value our time. So you're here, if you are asked to do something, you owe it to whatever, to the structure, to say yes, and to, blood, sweat, and tears, put it all in there to make the project go forward. And I think that today in 2022, we must, every graduate student and graduate researcher should feel entitled to valuing their time. And this relates to what you said in the following way, which is if I'm really intentional and conscious of the value of my time, I will know when to say no, because I'll say this is not a good investment of my time. In 5 years, this will actually have been negative. It'll be a negative in my Excel sheet of time well spent or not well spent on projects. And if you go into the private sector, this is part of, I think, the mentality, which is let's say we start this project, it's not working, let's drop it and go to something else. Anyway, I'm making different connections here, but this idea of be very feel entitled to say my time has value, and I need to I'm entitled to say no to things because they don't bring anything to my professional life project.
Yeah, this is exactly this. So you, of course, when you are a student, you can stretch your time work as you wish. But if you work in industry or in a company, it's 35 hours per week. It's 40 hours per week. You can work a little bit more, but is it worth to work a little bit more? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. If you work 60 hours a week, it doesn't worth to do it.
Case by case. Yeah.
It's case by case, but anyway, when you are in an industry and the company is going well, you have a lot of projects that's coming, and you just have to say like, okay, I have all these opportunity to have. How can I put in 35 or 40 hours per week? And most of the time it's impossible. So you just have to say, well, I'm not interested to this. I will skip this one, and I will take the things that I'm okay with that because it follows the mission of the company better, or it fit better with the thing. So I think this mentality, as you said, like should be learned in academia, because we tend to take everything that comes to us. So,
which then brings another problem, which is when you have those first conversations about a position, about pay, you often undervalue yourself because that's what you learned during graduate school. But that's another bag of worms. But now, so let's go to this last kind of segment of this of what not to do when you're in academia, or what you're doing that's kind of preventing you from having a fruitful transition outside academia later on. And you were mentioning innovation, and I'm really curious to hear about that, because you're the innovation guy.
I mean about think about your PhD as a project that value somebody in the society or have an impact to the society for a certain industry or certain people. Is your project is far from that. I don't say that fundamental science is bad. I really love fundamental science. I believe that there's always a rationale why we are doing all that work during a PhD, even if the rationale is in 50 years or 100 years.
Yes.
But there should be a rationale of doing the things. The rationale is curiosity. Could be curiosity simply because we are exploring during a PhD. So this is one part. But I think the main topic should be for something. So it comes to my mind like, if I'm doing a research or a PhD, it should solve a problem. And this is something that that is important, I think. And
I see where you're going with this,
yeah.
and I know, and I know exactly who you're thinking about. This is important for companies, for people who are hiring, because they want people to come and take part, be part of their teams and solve problems and bring innovation, etc., etc. And so I agree with you that fundamental research it's harder to have this connection, but I think you can work your storytelling to bring something to the table. But it's interesting. I had some people on the show from Isabel Phillips and such Dev such Dev from Effective Thesis, and their whole thing is helping like people who are looking for a thesis subject and even a thesis to define research subjects that are impactful for society at large. And if you have something that if your project is going to have a direct impact on some aspect of society or economy or industry or innovation, then it's true that when people ask you, so what did you do for your PhD, it's going to be so much easier to convince them that okay, this has interest, this has application, and if it's something that talks to them much better. So I agree, and I understand what you're saying. So the it's like you're making it easy on yourself later on to convince someone that, hey, I'm the right person for your team because I'm an objective driven person, and I what I do, I want it to have application. So am I understanding well what you?
Yeah, this is exactly what you said. But of course, all this applied science, all these topics about applied science cannot work without fundamental science, for sure. But yeah, when you have to write your CV, you need results and you need something that is concrete. So I think it's related to the impact. So the impact, you would like an impact to the society. I think it's very important. With your PhD and your research, this is required by the society. I think that if we pay for researchers, all of us, it's for the society, and it's one of the pillar of the academia. It's for making things for the society.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I agree, and I remember someone I know did his PhD at the Cancer UK, and they had and they're working on really small things. Like it's not so easy to say exactly like my project is going to give this, but first, well, it's in the domain of cancer, so that already it's easy just to explain, to tell someone, hey, I work in the domain of cancer, blah blah blah, so people kind of know already. But they had each year there was one day where they would the labs would open their doors and they needed to talk about their research to the people who gave donations or etc. And I think it was a great exercise. And what I want to say with this is, even if what you work on is very tiny, it's a very tiny piece of this big wall, if you train yourself to take a few steps back and be able to say, hey, I work on this little piece, but look at the puzzle that I'm part of, then you can kind of also get this positive effect of showing that what you do has application, even if it's not direct.
Yes, and I will take this opportunity for a challenge, like explain what you're doing and how it changed the society to any kind of people, like vulgarize your science, like making your science available to everybody. It's a good challenge, I guess, and this is how you can have another kind of impact to explain what you do and how it will change the world in the next 50 years. So yeah.
I agree. And just to finish, because we're reaching the end of this dojo, I think one of the, we were talking about not saying yes to everything. One thing that I've seen and that I think is flourishing and is really working well are these my thesis in 90 seconds or those types of competitions. If you get a chance, do that, because it's gonna be great. You're gonna learn you're gonna be forced to learn how to popularize what you do in a short amount of time, and plus you're gonna have this opportunity to meet with other young researchers in different domains. So it kind of encapsulates a lot of what we've recommended here today. But for this idea and this skill of talking in a very concrete way about what your research was about, even if it can be very abstract, these types of events and of competitions, etc., are a really good setting, and I would recommend that you say yes to that whenever the opportunity arises.
Yes, you're completely right. I think that's a good word to finish our dojo today. So go to I really love this competition, like watching the people 3-minute thesis competition. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, because you need to work
to the people who's doing that. Yeah.
All right, Gad,
Okay.
this was great. Thanks for bringing another great question from the second lab. Thanks, Matt, for sending it. As you saw, we kind of it's not an easy one to grasp and to go to the center of it, because it kind of has different ramifications. But I hope that in this short conversation and we touched enough points that you have some leads to follow and to fill those gaps of what you might not be doing.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone, and we are waiting for your questions too.
Definitely waiting for your questions, and don't forget that if you are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. This way you won't miss any other PhD Dojos or Papa PhD interviews. And plus, if you're a graduate student and you like communication and you'd like to collaborate in producing either the PhD Dojo or the Papa PhD podcast, just reach out to David at papaphd.com, and I'll be glad to chat with you. Whether you're good at audio, video, or graphic design. I'd love to bring someone in to collaborate. So just write me and we'll talk. So thanks everyone, and see you on the next PhD Dojo.
Thank you.
Bye, Gad.
Bye.